Eugene O'Neill. O'Neill was a ceaseless experimenter. He began as a realist, became an expressionist, and turned into a symbolist. At one stage in his career, he fused realism and expressionism. In order to understand O'Neill's expressionism, it would be better to know what expressionism means. Expressionism may be defined in simple terms as an attempt to portray inner reality in non-realistic terms by the use of abstraction, symbols, and distortion, and also by mask, asides, soliloquy, fantasy, stage effects like lightning and sound. The expressionist does not attempt realistic dialogue and subjects the dialogue to weird abbreviations and distortions so that it becomes frequently violent, telegraphic, and enigmatic. It is a dream play technique. The expressionistic technique on the stage is the stream of consciousness technique in fiction. The emphasis being on the soul or psyche of the character, the action moves backward and forward freely in space and time in harmony with the thought process of the character concerned. Instead of a dramatic sequence of events, there is a concentration on the stream of consciousness. The surface of life becomes disjointed, scattered, as in a dream to suggest the inner reality which lies beneath the surface. The scenes are often brief. They sometimes succeed one another without time sequence. They have neither order nor unity, and they suggest as they alternate between reality and fantasy, between objective action and analysis, the disorderly, disconnected features of psychoanalysis. As mentioned by J.W. Marrier, a realistic play is based upon superficial observation of detail, a mere photography. But Expressionism has been likened to an X-ray photography. Expressionism as a dramatic movement began in 1916 and it continued to flourish in Europe until around 1934. Described by some critics as the drama of disorder, this dramatic technique seeks to represent concretely on the stage what happens inside a character's mind in response to external stimuli. The objective world is presented through the narrow compass of the protagonist's vision and is completely subjective, even deliberately distorted. The distortion is made manifest mainly in the form of protest and rebellion against established society. Expressionism makes use of distorted settings to suggest a claustrophobic world in which everything is askew. In these distorted settings appear demoralized characters, each confined to his own orbit and unable to make contact with anyone else. The expressionists were concerned with man versus machine and with the class struggle. Their characters tend to be types, their designs stylized, and their scenes short. August Strindberg was the first dramatist to write expressionistic plays. For example, his plays The Dream Play, The Ghost Sonata, The Damascus, To Damascus are examples of plays in which expressionism is used. His overwhelming influence of Eugene O'Neill acknowledged in his work during on his work in his Nobel acceptance speech. Strindberg has defined the expressionistic drama in his preface to the Dream Play of 1902 in the following manner. Anything may happen. Everything is possible and probable. time and space do not exist. On an insignificant background of reality, imagination designs, embroiders novel patterns, a medley of memories, experiences, free fantasies, absurdities, and improvisations. Giving his own views on Expressionism, Eugene O'Neill once remarked, as I understand, Expressionism tried to minimize everything on the stage that stands between the author and the audience. The real contribution of the expressionist has been in the dynamic qualities of his plays. They express something in modern life better than did the old plays. The character in an expressionistic play is depersonalized. The emphasis is not on the individual, but on the society. There is no elaborate development of the individual relationship between characters. The number of characters also is put down to the minimum. The attention is focused on the central figure, and the other characters are not individualized. The characters express themselves briefly, often in monosyllables. Their conversation is symbolic of their attitudes and revelatory of what is passing within their souls, their agitation, bewilderment, confusion, obsession, etc. The dialogues are paused down, the language is clipped. Certain expressions are frequently repeated. In the expressionistic plays of German, Swedish, and Scandinavian dramatists, there is a total decay of plot and character. There is a kind of formlessness and incoherence. O'Neill was deeply influenced by Swedish dramatist Strindberg and German dramatist Kaiser. O'Neill used elaborately the expressionistic technique in The Hairy Ape, The Emperor John's, and Welded. He gave up his technique after writing Welded of 1924. However, he blended expressionism with realism, and herein lies his chief contribution. He demonstrated enormous theatrical talent, knowledge of human soul, intensity of passion, and sincerity of purpose. His courage and endless experiment with various methods, naturalistic, realistic, expressionistic, and symbolic, created an American theater out of nothing. Expressionism was imported from Europe to America. It was involved in Germany before the emergence of Eugene O'Neill. Expressionism demonstrates the artist's dissatisfaction from naturalism or realism, which expresses only the surface reality. The expressionist wants to portray and present through outer symbols inner reality. Expressionism to drama is what the stream of consciousness technique is to modern fiction. The expressionistic playwright presents the condition and working of the mind of his characters and wants to show their anger, sadness, sorrow, faith, sacrifice. Characters to him are symbolic types of inner reality, man's mind and consciousness. His soul and consciousness are his themes. Strindberg was father of the expressionistic drama. According to his directives, the expressionist imitates the disconnected. For him, time and space do not exist. Characters split, double, multiple, vanish, blur, solidify, and clarify. Consciousness reigns above all. Characters are dreamers. The play is woven out of dreams. There are no scruples, no laws, no congruities. There are neither judgments nor exhortation, but merely narration. The expressionistic drama is philosophical drama. It takes place in the mind of the characters. It's not anti-realistic, but para-realistic. It's the expression of the character's consciousness. It deals with meta-reality. In the phrase of J.W. Marriott, it's like an X-ray photography. In the expressionistic drama, the dramatist presents the soul of the man in the form of external symbols. His characters use metaphors. He uses figures which are obscure. In it, there is no place for photography. The characters burst into song and speak into poetry. Little attention is paid to the form. Dialogue, too, is not realistic. It employs devices such as soliloquies, heightened language, asides, masks, pantomimes, choruses, suggestive scenery, costumes, lightning, sound effects, giving outward expression to thoughts and emotions of characters. O'Neill himself says about the expressionistic drama, as I understand it, expressionism tries to minimize everything on the stage which stands between the author and the audience. He strives to get the author talking directly to the audience. I use that thing in The Hairy Ape. The Hairy Ape indeed is an expressionistic tragedy. It has all the features of an expressionistic play. It is the expressionistic drama of modern industrial unrest. It shows the late 19th century conflict between science and spiritual chaos. Heroes of the play is busy with the search for identity. Young is symbol of a class. Like Brutus Jones of the Emperor Jones, he symbolizes the primitive, the animal-like man. Both Mildred and her aunt are symbolic of artificiality. The hero, Young, like the old Adam, is lost. He has his sense of identity and belonging. He hardly knows who he is and where he belongs. He belongs neither to the world of human beings nor to the world of animals. Young's guilt lies in his being born at all. In this he is symbol of man who has lost his old harmony with nature. Young can't go forward, so he tries to go back. The gorilla kills him. Thus, the animal proves to be more helpful to Young than his brother man. Death seems to be the only solution to the problem of alienation. Since social reform is not possible, nor can it be possible answer to modern man's predicament, the play holds no hope for man. The man of today is brutalized by machine. He may be the architect of the modern civilization of steel, but in the process of evolution of this civilization, he also has become steel and his sensibility has become deadened. The first scene presents Young, a stalker on a transatlantic line, having a great faith in himself, also an equally great sense of belonging to the stock hall and the engine. He identifies himself with the steam and the smoke and the steel. I am the smoke and express trains and steamers and factory whistles. And I am what makes iron into steel. Steel that stands for the whole thing. And I am steel, 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 and the muscles in steel, the punch behind it. As such, he rejects Paddy, a dark dream of the past when a ship was part of the sea and a man was part of a ship, and the sea joined all together and made it one. Young has no sympathy even with Long, and Long who damns the capitalists who have dragged them down. Young silenced him by saying, "We be long and they down." Young rarely accepts man's new situation in the industrial world. Then suddenly, Young's illusion that he is part of the engine, the moving force behind, is shattered and he is thoroughly confused. His faith in the world is shattered when Mildred's sickly girl confronts Young and calls him the filthy beast. He is insulted in very heart of his pride. He is disillusioned, begins to feel that he no longer belongs. He goes out of the ship and tries to assert his individuality, his right to belong, by getting some vague kind of revenge. But he is faced with the world where belonging has lost all vitality and become merely through the proper motions where he can have no significance because nothing has. He's rejected everywhere he goes. He goes to the industrial workers of the world meeting and offers to blow up factories, steamers, because he now knows that it was the steel which caged him and that he had never really belonged anywhere. But he is thrown out. In the last scene, Young reaches the zoo and creeps close to the gorilla. He opens the cage. The gorilla gives him a murderous hug and walks off. Though O'Neill ends by saying, "And perhaps the hairy ape at last belongs," one is left with a feeling that this species of hairy ape doesn't even belong to the cage. Just like a true expressionist, the play Hairy Ape is a drama of despair, emptiness, and disillusionment. The play depicts man's inability to save himself through an act of will or an act of love. Young feels that his guilt lies in his being born at all. To quote Doris Alexander quotation, O'Neill writes to destroy that status quo, but he sees no hope for doing so. The only answer Eugene O'Neill can find for every human being is death. The hairy ape then presents a profoundly pessimistic philosophy which rejects entirely the status quo but sees no answer for man in a better society, no hope for destroying the existing society. Thus, Expressionism is a revolt and protest against society. In drama, it is technique that lays emphasis on inner reality or stream of consciousness. This inner reality is communicated through various expressionistic devices such as masks, asides, soliloquies, broken dialogue, stage effects such as lightning, costumes, etc. Dramatist deforms the plot and depersonalizes the character. The characters and events are as few as possible. The photography of realism, the dramatic sequence of events is abandoned for a stream of consciousness in terms of stage symbols, whereby the surface of life becomes disjoined, scattered, as in a dream, to suggest the inner reality which lies beneath the surface. Not concerned with externals, the dramatist explores the idea, the source of conduct until reality becomes subconscious and character mere abstraction. Scenes are often brief, they sometimes succeed one another without time sequence. They have neither order nor unity, and they suggest as they alternate between reality and fantasy, between objective action and analysis, the disorderly, disconnected features of psychoanalysis. The delineation of the subconscious world, avoidance of time, sequence, and unity, the employment of symbols, and the stream of consciousness technique, and the depiction of action followed by an analysis, and the juxtaposition of reality with dream are some of the devices which the expressionistic dramatists are fond of. These were, these were used by Strindberg and have also become powerful tools of experiment in some of O'Neill's plays. Time and space are broken. Anything may happen. There are also distortions and exaggerations in expressing the abstract through concrete. With this we come to the end of the discussion on expressionism in the plays of Eugene O'Neill. Next video will be discussing the heroes and heroines of Eugene O'Neill. Thank you very much for listening. May God bless you.